So joining us now, we love having the pro wrestlers on this show. And I mean, we're coming off a huge pro wrestling weekend, actually coming off a huge couple of pro wrestling weekends. You had NWA 75 a couple weekends ago. Of course, we had Billy Corgan on the show. Joining us now is the new NWA World Champion. He is EC3. There you go. He's got the belt right there. So how about that, EC3? I mean, you've worked for pretty much every major wrestling promotion there is out there now. And now you have NWA World Champion to your name. It's the most storied wrestling promotion there is out there, the NWA. So, I mean, how does that sound? That's pretty damn cool, man.
Well, I mean, it's an honor. I'm not going to lie. It's an honor to be this good at what I do and to be rewarded so kindly with a title shot and the opportunity to carry the NWA into its bright, blistering hot future that I plan on bringing to it. But it is truly an honor. Like, only so many names have been able to hold this World's Championship. This title is the only real World's Championship. I don't know if you know that. I didn't know this. I'm a historian too, but I was down at OVW. I take this title. I throw it on the desk of Al Snow. I say, "Told ya." And like, he looked at it, and he's a crazy mind, but he's a genius mind. And he's studying it, and he's looking at it, and he goes, this is the only real World Championship because this title represented not just one company's vision of who they want and who the best in wrestling is, but a multitude. So though those times have changed, I would dare say I am the one and only true World's Heavyweight Champion in wrestling, and it's pretty cool. So up yours, everybody else.
Is there any NWA World Champion on that incredible list of world champions from all of time that you look at like, wow, that's pretty effing cool that I'm now on that list with that guy?
Yeah, Ronnie Garvin. No, like every person, I mean, dude, NWA, I grew up a WWF fan, so I didn't know the NWA until I kind of became a student of the game and wanted to get into wrestling. And then as I've acquired a taste and like, I guess I've gotten older, but seeing the way they worked, they wrestled, they fought back in the day, and appreciating the art and the physical, beauty they displayed. I call it physicality with a purpose, which I think we lack sorely in wrestling today. Watching those guys go out there 30, 40 hour-long matches, bringing the energy, crowds erupting for the entirety of the time. You do harken back to the old days in a sense, but everybody on that list I can outwoo Flair. I can spit more fire than Steamboat. I've suffered harder times than Dusty Rhodes, and hard times make strong men, and nobody's stronger or harder than EC3. So all those names, it's pretty much an honor to be a part of.
It's funny. We probably had a similar experience. We're around the same age, and I grew up a WWF fan, of course, and I would get the Pro Wrestling magazine off the shelves where, of course, they have all the WWF stars. But then when they're doing their rankings, you got all the NWA guys there as well. And it's like, that's how I learned about the NWA guys. And then eventually, I mean, you mentioned Ronnie Garvin, then eventually some of them would show up in WWF toward the end of their careers. It's like, oh yeah, I know that guy now.
What disappointment. Like, Barry Windham is effing awesome. And then you go back to the WWF and it's like the Stalker. And it's like, God. It's almost like, I don't know, EC3 is awesome and everyone loves him. And then he goes to WWE and he sucks.
Well, I'll tell you, man, I for the life of me, I can't figure out how it didn't work for you this last run in NXT. And then when they brought you up to SmackDown and you're sitting there, I'm like, can we use EC3? Like, this guy entertains me every time he's on the screen. I don't get it, man.
I hate to be the guy I'm like hearkening back to the past and I didn't get this, I'm not that person. What happened needed to happen for me to become who I'm supposed to be in this moment, to learn a lot about myself. The only person I have to blame for that run's myself, because I didn't do enough apparently to warrant that position or that opportunity, and that's fine. Lesson learned. And how did I learn it? Capturing this, reinventing myself again, creating a name again, being chosen to carry a company one more time, where I carried an Impact through its darkest days, NWA is not in dark days. We're in very, very bright future. And to be able to lead that charge and to lead that locker room, I don't know, it'll be a lasting legacy that very few can match.
Well, and so speaking of which, the days of wrestling today are we in like a golden age of pro wrestling? There's so much out there, EC3.
If quality over quantity though. So define golden, and I'll say if we're in a golden age.
I think that we have options for everyone out there. I think that's probably what I mean.
Okay, in that sense, it would be golden. When I think of golden, though, I think of extreme quality, which I do think with the amount we have a lot to be. A lot is filler, a lot is just content. A lot of heart and soul is lost from overall products, the emotional value, the way they make you feel, because there's only so many hours of television you can fill and so much feeling you can get that like not everything is special. So golden to me is extremely special. We're in a plethora. We're definitely in a surplus. I think what else would constitute golden is a unified fan base, where I think our fan base in wrestling is very divisive. I think there's a very strong open mouth niche market that kind of controls a narrative per se, that kind of scares away the people that like wrestling, that kind of love it, that want to grow into loving it because of their overabundance of opinion that are not facts more often than not, and just their overall demeanor. So I don't think that's golden. I think we can be golden. Talent, production, quality. Like, if people can, we would be in a golden era, I would think, if talent would feel free enough to express themselves who they truly are, in lieu of being who they think they need to be to appease a minority fan base. That's when I think we're missing. The Rock and Stone Cold in 2001 would not be listening or caring what other people think. They would be going out there delivering their best, cutting fire promos, having great matches. They would not care what one person said. Flair, Sting, Steamboat, those same guys would go out there, and their reception they received with the audience and the interaction and the emotion they felt live was enough to know they were doing their job to the best of their ability. I think golden also requires a certain energy where somebody needs to be, I guess, a figure in a sense that's unafraid to be cheered nor booed. Like, it doesn't seek that, but brings a presence with them that can kind of have that magnanimous feeling. And I don't know, short of a Roman Reigns and myself, I don't know if there's anybody out there like that.
When you were coming up, I know you've been wrestling since you were young. Did you have to get to a point where you were comfortable with the boos? Like, was that a hard adjustment when people would boo you?
Like, no, because it's funny. The nicest people turn out to be the best wrestling bad guys, while the worst people on the planet turn out to be really good wrestling good guys. It's funny how that works. But no, I thrived off interaction at all times. So knowing being booed, like a beer threw in my face, I'm like, yes,
yeah,
awesome. Like, people screaming bloody murder at me, great. What is hard to take is the lies, the assumptions, the fake cancellation I received based on nothing. But I was able to get through that and made me even a better, more opinionated, stronger, talented performer. So that I could see being harder for people to get over. Like, it's one thing saying you suck and like a kid's yelling at me and I'm like, hey, blah. And it's another thing to get a diatribe written online about you that's completely inaccurate in every sort of way, shape, and form, verified by no witnesses and no real sources of information, that is therefore then, because it was written on the internet, believed by a majority of people. Like, what can you do with that? Sort of, that's not true. If you want to believe it, I'm not going to stop you. That's the hard thing to deal with.
Yeah, no. I would imagine that's super difficult. You see the headlines with dirt sheets, and I try not to read it. I like reading the stuff where, all right, so and so's injured, he's going to be out for so and so weeks. I want to be up to speed on all that kind of stuff. But
I just wonder too. But like, how often they're wrong, and then how often people still believe it. I have a family member who will not talk to me about wrestling, who knows me personally, but comes up to me with the stuff you read off the internet. Hey, I heard this on the internet. And I'm like,
Sucks.
dude, no, you know, ask me.
Yeah.
That is not true. Like, so it's a small-minded mentality to be easily controlled. That's all.
Do you try and stay away from all the internet stuff? I mean, like interactions with fans on the internet, because it's funny how vile the internet wrestling community can be sometimes. Because for people who claim they love pro wrestling, it seems like most of them hate pro wrestling.
Weird, right? No, like they type a lot of words at me, and guess what? I'm not reading. Okay, I'm reading real books or real Tinder profiles. Okay, I'm not reading that ever. I do love fan interaction. Like I love going to, conventions and meet and greets and signings and shows like that with, good fans and respectful. Like I've heard so many stories that I would never have heard had I looked at my Twitter mentions, because this person would have write it. But to meet me in person, to tell me some sort of impact I had on their life that I totally had no idea, and what that meant to them and what it caused them to do and how they're doing so well now. Like that's something you can't prepare for, how that makes you feel in a good way.
Yeah, it's cool.
So, fan interaction's great, but like I've never met anybody who talks, I don't know if I can cuss.
Yeah.
Talks it online, who's ever done anything with their life ever. So that's it. And that's what you deal with. At the same time, freedom of speech is, I'm a firm advocate of it. So you can say what you want about me. I just don't have to read it, nor do I have to care about it.
How about working with Billy Corgan? I know you've been with the NWA for what, about 2 years now, maybe a little less. And while Billy Corgan has been running NWA for several years now, guys who are your age and my age, it's Billy Corgan, founder of the Smashing Pumpkins.
Wow.
So did you have to be convinced that, okay, this guy knows what he's doing, let's go work with him?
No, well, I got with him in Impact early too. Because I mean, it's one of my favorite bands of all time, so I'm of course going to go hang out with the lead singer who wants to be a wrestling fan.
Right.
Because there's very few leaders in wrestling, as we're seeing with the unfolding dramas in other companies. Nobody's like can lead, and sometimes leadership comes from people that have succeeded outside of it, that can bring real world perspective into our crazy, oftentimes idiotic business. So getting with him and learning, I'm very fascinated with music. I can't play anything but a skin flute, but I'm very, very fascinated with sympathies and scores and things of that nature, and like the ebb and flow, and how does that apply to wrestling, to like bring that conversation to a musical genius. It's super enlightening, because I love conversation. So talking about that, and then myself parlaying how I see it within wrestling to terms that maybe he gets, and he can kind of see that. So it wasn't intimidating. We're very like-minded. When he started the NWA, there was an opportunity for me to come over here, but I went back to the WWE. Don't know if that was, obviously it's the right decision because I'm here in the moment. Mm-hmm. But I've been very fond of him. I checked in on him from time to time. The fact we're doing this now needed to happen. I respect the hell out of him and what he's done. But most importantly, I respect his leadership and his vision for the future, which what I like about him is he doesn't have to talk about it online and say big things coming or this and that. He's calculating. He makes the right plays. He knows his value. His timing is spot on. And when it happens, it's going to happen. And now it's definitely going to happen because I'm the champ.
That's cool to hear. When did you fall in love with pro wrestling? I feel like all wrestling fans, I got that moment. I feel like all wrestling fans have that moment.
When did I fall in love? I know the exact moment I decided to become a professional wrestler, but I loved it prior to that. Dude, I think I loved it when I saw The Rock hit Ken Shamrock with brass knuckles at the Royal Rumble. I'm like, you can do that? Because it's like, no, it's illegal. I'm like, that's awesome. So it might have been that. I know the moment when I decided I wanted, I'm for sure going to do this. Not my favorite match of all time, but Benoit versus Angle in a cage on Raw, where Angle comes off with the moonsault, wipes out, boom. And I'm like, listening to the people, I'm like, wow. And then later on, there's German off the cage. I'm like, oh, like my smart mark fucking boner's going nuts. Then Benoit's headbutt flying off the cage, and I pause it. And I'm like, Dad, I'm going to be a pro wrestler. Okay. All right, cool. And then
have you had any moments where those guys like Angle, who you then got to work with, and it's like, holy shit, I can't believe I'm working with you?
Yeah. After the title match I had with Kurt Angle, like the day after, I just caught him in a chatty mood, and we were just both sitting there by a monitor talking and just listening to him talk. And like, one thing about wanting to be on a certain level, you have to act like you're already at that level. So for me at least, so I'm not gonna be like, dude, I'm the biggest fan in the world. Before I'm working with him, I need to prove myself to him in the build-up, in the match, and how I handle the match afterwards. Like, I need to prove myself in my professionalism and ability. So when that was kind of proven, because we did the match and he was very happy with it, I can kind of let on a couple of the things that meant a lot to me through his career and have that conversation. And no matter what anybody would ever say to me about wrestling, a fan, a smart mark, whatever, when Kurt Angle calls you a great worker, like, you're great. Yeah. Like, you have excellent timing. Your pacing's incredible. Your cardio is unbelievable. Like, nobody's gotten up from me on the, like, when Kurt Angle's telling you you're great at something, what's Smark 613 going to tell me that, like, any jurisdiction over that?
And he was ridiculous in his time in TNA. Like, he was really on another level.
Yeah. Because I had him at the very tail end, but I mean, 87% going Kurt Angle's better than 100% of all of us any day of the week.
Yeah. If you're okay with it, EC3, I'd love to hear any memories you had, interactions with Bray Wyatt.
Yeah, we're actually, want me to cry? I mean, we came up in developmental together, and I think there was sort of like a competitive nature between us, not in promos to be kind of weird and outlandish, and who was more bizarre or creative in a sense. Shared a lot of great times, a lot of great memories, family get-togethers, nights at the bar, just dude stuff, bro stuff. But one memory I have really is when the Fiend finally debuted the first vignette. And like, when you're not in the system, you're friends with a lot of people, but if you're not working in the same company, you might not talk for months, and that's okay. It's not losing contact. Like, we have a weird relationships where I might not see him in 6 months, we're right back wherever. Oh, you're cool. But seeing that happen and knowing that was fully him and his mind and creativity, and he invested in himself to create that and put so much into it, and if it showed up on the big show, like, that was sincere pride I had for him. And then for him to run with it until they disassembled it and made it terrible, which they tend to do. Like, when he lost to Goldberg in that Saudi match, I have said that was a time, like, wrestling died to me that day, because it doesn't matter how much you put in to something with care and heart and passion and creativity. At some point, if somebody doesn't like it, they're just going to pull the plug. And like, if it happened to him, this is a negative mindset and I shouldn't have it. But if it happened to him there, like, then what's the point of me even trying anymore?
EC3, NWA World Champion. I'll let you go on this. You've been really generous with your time. Anyone out there, doesn't just have to be with the NWA. Is there one wrestler out there right now that you say, wow, I would really love to be in a ring with him one day?
Yeah, Cena, for sure.
Who is it?
Cena.
Okay.
He needs number 17. Okay. He's not going to get it over there. He doesn't owe the WWE anything. He is his own man. I know how much this exact title infatuates him, something he's never had the opportunity for. Like, 17 is a very special number that he can attain. And what's he going to do? Attain it? Versus Rollins or Reigns, been there, done that. Like, if he can go outside of his norm, outside of his system, and he really wanted, like, I'm 100% manifesting this in the moment, that I am the guy that can bring the absolute best out of him for one more run. For just one great moment that is completely his own and my own, as opposed to a company's.
It's awesome. That's cool. EC3 NWA World Champion. Congrats on the win, obviously. I mean, you're doing it over there, man. Again, like I told you, I saw you over a couple of years ago, NXT, WWE. I'm like, that dude right there is a freaking star. I don't understand what's happening here. And you got the NWA title. I mean, you know, we know the list of guys who've held that title already. So good stuff, man. Congratulations. I appreciate you hanging out with us here today.
Anytime. Talk soon.